Hello, testing. Welcome, welcome. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay, we'll be starting in about 10 minutes. So just make yourself comfortable. All right, just checking in, testing the sound. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Maybe give me a thumbs up in the chat if the volume sounds fine to you. I can adjust it on my end. And we'll get started in about 6 minutes. We're gonna wait until the hour. So make yourself comfortable. I'm glad you're here. Okay, it says we're live in 6 minutes. Oh no, that's counting up. But that's about right. I take that back, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. I'm excited. My very first YouTube live. Hello, hello. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. I logged on a little early to make sure that everything is working correctly. If you if you're there, just let me know if you can hear me. If the sound is a-okay, you can give me a thumbs up. And we'll be starting in just a minute or two officially. Welcome, welcome. If you want to say hi in the chat, that would be awesome. Not required by any means. But I am going to wait till right up at the hour before I officially get started. This is going to be recorded for later. So we're going to stick to the time schedule. This is a trauma-informed yoga class. I'm happy you're here. Let me know how you found the class. If you would, I'd love to know how you ran across it. All right, it's official. I'd like to welcome you to this trauma-informed yoga class. My name is Elizabeth, and I've been a movement instructor for over 20 years. And I am really excited to present this particular type of yoga to you, because I have learned over these 20 years or so, or more, it's been more than 20 years, just how healing movement can be. Any kind of movement is just so empowering and so healing. And I've seen the effects of this over and over and over again. And once I tapped into trauma-informed yoga itself and the training around it, it really deepened the healing practice of movement and applied a lot of other tools that yoga can offer, which help kind of flesh out all of the healing properties that we tap into with movement. My background is in dance and fitness. I'm a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, a Zumba instructor, other types of movement and dance as well. And I've been trained in trauma-informed yoga, as well as something called physio yoga, which is a bridge between physical therapy and yoga. So that's a little bit about my background. And I just feel so strongly about offering tools that can be utilized so that we can all heal ourselves, because that's really the most effective means of healing, when we have the tools to manage our own nervous system along the way. And it's therapy is wonderful, and it's much needed. But along with that, using tools like trauma-informed yoga to deepen the work that we can do on our own is such a wonderful thing to have in your toolbox. So I'd also like to talk a little bit about the work, but I also think it's important to start moving the body. So when we get started here, if you've got a yoga mat, that's great. But I believe that you don't need a yoga mat to do yoga. If you've got one, awesome, go ahead and set it up. If you've got yoga props like bolsters and blocks and blankets, go ahead and grab those. If you don't have those, that's all right. If you've got other blankets and pillows, grab those. Those are Well, they're not absolutely required, but I highly recommend having at least a blanket available and maybe a pillow. Uh, and also a journal, a book, a few papers, or even the sticky notes or any kind of scrap of paper would be great, along with a pen or pencil. Not required, but would be great if you've got it. So I'll assume you've got those things available. Go ahead and grab them. If you need to, and you're watching this on a recording, go ahead and pause this and grab the things you need. Otherwise, we'll get started, and I'd like to invite you to find a comfortable position. Maybe that's lying on the back, maybe that's lying on the side, maybe that's seated, maybe it's sitting in a chair. Whatever sounds comfortable to you right now, go ahead and explore those options. You can consider this a way to find a restful and comfortable position. All right. And as you do that, notice what that means to you. Can you find a comfortable position? Can you get comfortable? Do you feel like you could rest right now? Notice how your body is feeling. There's no requirement in this restful pose, just something that's comfortable for you, and something that you could settle into. Doesn't mean you need to hold still. So as you find some comfortable positions, maybe you keep your body moving, or maybe you try a few different poses. And not even poses as much as positions. So get yourself comfy and cozy. Use that blanket and that pillow. So get yourself comfortable and notice if you'd rather keep your body moving. Feel free to do that. So this part is really just all you exploring, and I'm not even going to guide you physically. I'm not going to do it with you because it's totally you. It's all you. Just uh, I'm giving you the permission that sometimes we feel like we need, which you don't need, but I'm going to give this permission in case you feel like you need it, to completely indulge in something comfy and cozy and relaxing. Keep working into your comfort there. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on trauma-informed yoga. I'm going to talk a little bit about how trauma affects us. And the truth is that trauma affects us in different ways. And I'd like to talk about the brain and the body reaction of trauma so that we know as a baseline what's going on. It can be helpful. Even if this is a review for you, we're not going to get too deep into the specifics. I just would like to give you an overview of what it means when we say trauma. So trauma is what happens when a person experiences an event that causes the nervous system to become dysregulated. So this can happen from any number of experiences, and there is not a common definition on what is a traumatic event and what is not. This can happen to different people for different reasons. Okay, so there's not a list that says it's one of these items. Okay, it can be anything. Okay, so the event is irrelevant, but what happens in the body is that there's a communication between the brain and the body, and the brain is the amygdala, and the amygdala is responsible for what we have come to know very commonly as the fight or flight or freeze response. This is the part of the brain that monitors when something needs to be reacted to. So if a person is experiencing a threat to the body or to the emotions, or there's a threat that's perceived or real. It might feel like a life threat, um, some type of threat that causes the nervous system to activate. That's put on by the amygdala. So, in what would be a traumatic event, this activation doesn't return back to normal afterwards. So, in normal activation, what our bodies are made to do, they're made to activate when something happens. And then, once the traumatic event or the life threat has passed by, the activation comes back down. So, once a traumatic event has pushed us outside of our regulating window, this window of tolerance, then what happens is the brain tends to be constantly looking for uh, an an event to reactivate to. So it may see threats where there are none. It's kind of on a constant looking out for threats. So instead of coming back to rest and allowing the body to rest, it continues to be activated over and over. So um, this is what we would refer to as a traumatic event and trauma. And again, this is triggered by any number of things, and that's different for every person. It's an autonomic response in the body. It's something automatic that happens, causes things like dilation of the pupils and heart rate to escalate. Um, Many things that we don't have control over. Our body is taking care of us. This is what it's supposed to do. But once we've had that event, and we continue to be triggered, this is the part that's dysregulated. So, why do we say that trauma is held in the body? If you have heard that, that's something that is talked about a lot or mentioned a lot. And the reason for that is that the memories of trauma get stored in the senses. So it's like a snapshot of fragments of sensory memories rather than um, in the brain where we're recalling words and a storyline. That part of the brain is offline when we're activated in this way. So, the part of the brain that is activated has to do with the senses, where we're scanning, where we're really just trying to do what needs to be done to save ourselves, right? So, all the things that are online are activated from the body, from the senses. So, when we have memories of our trauma or traumatic events, it can be a felt sense, it can be any one of the five senses that we feel, we smell, we taste. Those are where we hold these memories of traumatic events. So, that is why, one of the reasons why we come to yoga to work with this, because it is about the body and we can move the body in conjunction with the breath and our intentions. And part of the practice of yoga's tools and benefits is all about um, calming the nervous system. That is one of the benefits of yoga, balancing the nervous system. And that's exactly what we want to try to do when we're looking at re regulating the nervous system. So, um, if you're still in your restful pose and you'd like to take a few deep breaths here, or consider if the breaths would be feeling good to take deep breaths, or if you'd feel better taking some relaxing, calm, gentle breaths. Maybe place the hand on the heart, maybe one on the belly. Feel the breath if that feels okay to you. Just notice what's going on in your body right now. So, one of the things we'll be doing today is bringing an awareness practice um, to all the parts of our practice. So, in your restful pose, restful position, go ahead and bring some awareness to any part of the body that is touching the floor or a chair, the ground. Notice the parts of the body that are touching the surface, that is then touching the earth. See if you can feel the outline of the body that is touching the ground. Take a few breaths here. And if you'd like to find your way to another position, feel free to do that. So, what is yoga exactly? We're going to discuss that just for a moment, just in case you're brand new to the practice. And even if you're not brand new to the practice, be aware that we actually don't always recognize all the parts of yoga, traditional yoga, when we're practicing. We're familiar with the poses and a flow in yoga, or maybe just a few shapes that we know. But the practice of yoga is actually um, around 1700 years old, and it originated in India. And we look at some of the teachings of yoga that are based on what we call the Yoga Sutras, or threads of teaching. This is where what we base our yoga philosophy on. And Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this is kind of the outline of all of the philosophies of yoga, and it comes down to eight limbs, eight basic teachings that are then broken down into some very detailed philosophical points. But the eight limbs and we will be touching on these within our series of classes here. But I just want to just mention them in case you haven't heard of them before. But the first one is the yamas, and this is all about ethical living and how we show up in the world, how we interact with the world itself, like things like nonviolence, things like non-greed, that type of thing, external focus. The second one is the niyamas, and that's all about how we show up for ourselves. And it's about healthy living and things like contentment and purity, things like that. The third one is asana, and this is all about the physical practice. These are the things that we're used to seeing, the shapes in yoga. And then the fourth one is pranayama, and this is all about the breath and the life force energy that is related to the breath. Pratyahara, and this is all about withdrawal from the senses, um, allowing you to have an inward focus. Dharana, which is concentration, being able to concentrate deeply. And dhyana, which is a meditation, right? And then samadhi, which is freedom from illusion or blissful state of union. So we can look at the whole practice of yoga as the goal being to unify, to bring together the breath, the body, and the mind and spirit. The word yoke is a translation, and it's really union, bringing things together. And so we're doing in our practice is finding the presence to bring the body and the breath and the mind and the spirit all together, unifying you as a being. And this is our path in yoga to find peace. So within the practice of yoga in all of its philosophies. This is the path that we look at that is a little deeper than just the movement because we are unifying all of these pieces together. So, um, if you'd like to make your way to the hands and knees, if that feels good to you, you might begin to practice some other movements side to side, maybe cat and cow, which is a flexing and a curving of the spine, maybe a rocking of the head from side to side, perhaps a little self massage on the neck and the shoulders. Notice what feels good here. Maybe twisting as you're seated, or even from your tabletop, hands and knees position. Twisting or side reaching. Exploring all of these shapes, whatever feels good to you. Sometimes I find that once I've given myself permission to explore a couple of movements, I realize, oh yeah, I needed to move this way too. This is what I really need. So I'm just going to kind of prime the pump and encourage you to find some movement here. And the last piece of more of the lecture part of this is the introduction part. In the session number 1. So I'm introducing to you trauma, yoga, and now what is trauma-informed yoga? Let's talk about that just a little bit so that we can lay the groundwork on what to expect and what the heck is going on here. So trauma-informed yoga is really an empowering style of yoga, and it really prioritizes the lived experience of a person who has experienced trauma. So we're looking at what can help the healing journey of somebody who has experienced trauma, and also recognizing that trauma exists. So as a yoga teacher who's practicing or teaching trauma-informed yoga, that means that I'm aware that trauma exists and that many, many students who show up for classes have experienced trauma. So our priorities are all about how can we nurture and show up for each other in a way that's healing, in a way that's safe, in a way that is supportive. So we prioritize safety and support and trust and consistency. We we prioritize inclusiveness, and this is a big one, invitational language. So you'll hear this all the way through classes. I'm inviting you to do things. I'm not going to demand that you do them, and neither should you. Okay, so we want to explore our options. So we've got choices, and there's invitation and choice within everything that we do in this style of class. And self-empowerment, self-awareness, self-regulation. So all these things are up to you to regulate, to empower. So another thing about this practice is that it does not dictate what style of yoga, what style of movement that we're going to do. So while this is going to be a very gentle series, it doesn't necessarily say that if we're doing trauma-informed yoga, that doesn't mean that it has to be a gentle class. But it does mean that we're going to come from a place where we recognize that trauma is a thing and we want to assist with that journey. I also want to mention that there are other terms: trauma-informed, trauma-conscious, trauma-sensitive. These are all terms you might hear or see when you're looking at yoga classes. And at this point, those things are pretty interchangeable. This is still a fairly new field, and so you'll see a lot of different terms, but in general, it means that the instructor has been trained in the basics of trauma-informed practicing. And our goal is to provide the safest possible class we can. Okay, so the other thing we're doing today is really bringing a lot of attention to awareness. So we're introducing all of this, all of these terms so that we understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're using yoga because it has tools that we can apply to our lives, to our lives that will that have been known to help calm the nervous system, right? So yoga has many tools within it, and we're incorporating those tools. We're showing up on the mat with intention and using the breath and moving the body. We're and we're going to use terms that are all about finding choice in the body for yourself. And that can be one of the hardest parts, to recognize what you actually need. So I will be asking you to check in with yourself, check in with your body to find what it's telling you. What is it telling you that you need right now? If I suggest a movement or a shape, does it feel good? Or maybe you go through the motions of your yoga class and maybe you haven't considered whether that particular pose is really working for you. So with the rest of this class, I will ask you to consider in every single movement whether it feels good right now. Okay. So take a few breaths in whatever shape you are in right now, whether you're lying down or seated or on your hands and knees. Take a few breaths and just check in. Check in and see, ask your body, how you doing? Body, how are you feeling? Maybe check in with a couple different parts of your body and ask, how you doing? Knees, how you doing? Neck, right? So if you've got your journal or some paper or a sticky note, if you've got something handy, now might be a good time, completely optional, of course, but now might be a good time to take that out and jot a note or two, anything that comes up. Sometimes when we just have that time to move and to be on the mat, we get messages, or we might get a reminder, or we might get a note that could be helpful to remember later, or to check back in and say, oh yeah, that was something that felt good, and that was something that I told myself I wanted to do again. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some basic yoga poses, and but let's come together. If it feels good to you, come together in a standing pose. So make your way up to standing. And I also want to mention that you've already done the hard work of showing up, right? You've showed up, you're here. So if for the whole rest of the class, you decide to lie down on your back or find a restful pose or journal, if there's something that calls to you, go ahead and do it. You have complete and utter permission to do anything at all. Congratulations for showing up. That's all you needed to do. If you would like to move through the poses of yoga with me, I'm going to introduce to you a handful of poses. But let's start with mountain pose. Mountain pose is coming to a standing pose, standing posture here, and bringing some awareness practice into our mountain pose. Mountain pose tends to look like all we're doing is standing. However, let's begin with anchoring down through the soles of the feet. Can you feel all the corners of the feet? Can you feel all the parts of the feet? Notice perhaps you need to keep moving on the feet if you prefer to continue to move or even to walk a little bit forward and back. If it feels good to you to begin to anchor down through the soles of the feet, maybe lift the toes and spread them and set them back down. Take a few breaths here. Maybe even bring one hand to the heart and one to the belly. Notice what you feel. Can you feel the breath moving the body? Can you feel the rib cage move? Can you feel the belly move? Notice if you're more comfortable with your eyes open or closed. There is no right or wrong. The right way is the way that feels good to you. It might mean trying different ways before you know which one feels best to you. It's all good. Perhaps as you exhale, you can feel yourself get a little heavier into your feet. Notice what you feel from your feet, imagining that you're anchoring all the way down to the center of the earth. This particular practice of grounding can be something that you can employ at any time throughout the day, any time that you might need to ground yourself. I especially like to anchor down through the soles of the feet when I've had an experience where I get a little overwhelmed or I'm up in my head and my mind. Maybe my thoughts are worrying around a little bit. This practice can help anchor you into the moment and feel a little more solid in your body. All of these tools that I might suggest are just suggestions. They're things, they're tools you can try. Every tool does not work every time for every person. Just put it in your toolbox. And if you'd like, go ahead and reach the arms up high into an upward salute. Continue to anchor down through your feet. So this first time through, I'm going to take a few breaths in every pose, and I would encourage you to breathe in each pose and really feel how it feels. Instead of moving through our poses quickly and not recognizing how they're feeling, we're actually going to bring awareness to every part of the practice today. If you would like, you can match up the movement and your breath and exhale on the way down if that feels good to you. Coming to a forward fold. Maybe even taking the feet a little wider into a ragdoll pose, and you can soften the knees. If it feels good to you, maybe even let the head and neck and body sway. And if you would like, we'll come halfway up, lengthen through the spine, and fold forward once again. Now, from here, if you would like, you can roll up one vertebrae at a time, or if you'd rather, reach the heart forward and do a reverse swan dive coming all the way back up. Whichever way up feels good to you is the one you should do. And bring your hands back down, heart center, samastitihi. Maybe take a breath here. Recognize how you're feeling all the way through your body. We'll do that one more time. Inhale. Notice if it feels good to move with the breath. Maybe take a breath here. Notice what feels right to you. Fold forward when you're ready, taking it all the way down. And you can hang in ragdoll or stay in Uttanasana, this forward fold. And if you'd like, come halfway up, lengthening through the spine. Fold forward. And if it feels good, make your way up to standing the way that feels the best to you. Maybe you need to try it both ways. And bring the hands back down to heart. Notice how you're feeling right now. Get curious about how you're feeling in each part of your body. If you have been a yoga practitioner for a while, then the moves that we just did are things that you've done many times, most likely. Instead of just moving through them, consider how they actually feel to you. Throughout this practice, I would love it if you considered finding one pose that feels really good to you. Notice if one of these positions feels better than all the others, okay? So that's something to keep in mind as you go through here. We'll go through this again, but this time adding on to it. So we reach up, upward salute here, and then fold forward. If you'd like, come halfway up. And if you're ready, take it forward. This time, I'm going to bring my hands to the mat and step the feet back into a plank pose. We can stay here in plank for a couple of breaths. This is a really strong pose. Notice how it feels to be in a really strong pose right now. There are times when that's exactly what we think we need, when it feels really good. And there are times when that is the last thing we really need. Notice what your body is telling you right now. Now you can lower your knees or you can take your whole body down slowly. And rise for cobra. Opening the chest and maybe drawing the shoulders back. See how it feels. And take it back down. And if you're ready and if you'd like to, take it all the way up to a downward dog. Lift the hips up and back. Feel how it feels to lift those hips back. Maybe explore the shape. Downward dog is a really good pose to explore. Maybe bending and straightening the knees and lifting and lowering the heels. Maybe you want to crouch low and reach high. Consider your head and your neck. Consider if you'd like to twist from side to side or make any other adjustments. Now, downward dog can be a very comfortable position for a lot of people. It can also be a very uncomfortable position for a lot of people. Notice how it is for you. Reach the right leg high if you would like. See how that feels. And if you would like to reach forward, step it forward. Maybe lower that back knee down and rise up. Consider how you like your low lunge. See if this feels good. For some people at this point, everything is uncomfortable. If that's you, you can take a time out. You can make any changes to the poses that your body is asking for. If you've been practicing yoga for a long time and your body is craving more movement, you can listen to that. Do what feels right. And maybe we bring the hands back down and step back to a downward dog once again. And if you'd like, reach the other leg up high this time. And then step it forward. Lower the back knee. And maybe you rise up. And in this low lunge, Notice how it's feeling in your hips. And really, throughout this whole practice, we want to use some curiosity. So explore it like you're an adventurer. What is going on there? What does that feel like? What exactly is happening in my body here? And we'll step it back if you'd like, back to a downward dog. And maybe walk it forward. Perhaps exhaling into a ragdoll pose. And if you would like, make your way up to standing any way that you like. Again, rolling up or reaching the arms out and up. And make your way back, hands to heart. Take a few breaths here. Notice how it feels to be in your body right here. So in our mountain pose, can you find balance? Sometimes I like to really ground into the earth with my feet. And when I do, I feel heavy. I feel like my body is solid and anchored to this spot. It can also feel like the most balanced stance of my whole day. For me, sometimes I like to close my eyes and notice if my body is shifting side to side or front to back. It's very natural for the body to have little movements at all times. With our life force running through our bodies, it's unusual for the body to be completely still. Even when we're not moving, we're rarely completely still. So just notice how it feels here. Maybe that's enough movement for you and you can take a time out. Choose any position you would like. If, however, you'd like to explore more movement, we'll go through that flow. I'll take it all the way through the flow, slow and steady. You're welcome to follow my pace or slow it down more or speed it up and do more than one cycle. Whatever works for you today is exactly what you should do. One of the biggest challenges in a very intentional and conscious choice in our yoga is to actually hear the voice of our bodies, listen, to actually hear what is it that I actually need instead of going through the motions. So notice if your yoga practice ever gets to the point where you're just going through the motions. Instead, maybe tune in and listen along the way. Flowing with me, perhaps reaching up and then folding forward, Uttanasana or forward fold. Coming up halfway, Ardha Uttanasana, and folding forward. Hands coming to the mat and stepping back to plank. Maybe holding and feeling strong here, or perhaps moving right on through. We can take this all the way down to the belly and rise for cobra, or we can move through chaturanga, coming halfway down and flowing through to up dog. Whatever feels right to you. And then lifting the hips and coming back to downward dog. Perhaps reaching one leg up high for three-legged dog. And stepping forward. Now you have your choice. Of course, you have your choice all the way through, but if you'd like, you can lower that back knee and come to a low lunge, Anjaneyasana, like we did the first round. Or if you'd rather, rise for warrior one, lowering that back heel. And if you're up here, we can open out to warrior two. Notice how it feels to be in these warrior poses. Peaceful warrior or reverse warrior. Warrior two. And maybe we'll windmill the hands back down to the mat and step to downward dog. How did all those poses feel? Did they feel nurturing? Maybe we reach the other leg up high and step forward. And consider a low lunge or rise for warrior one. Listening to your body, listening to the message it's giving to you. Maybe opening out for warrior two. Finding that reverse warrior. And warrior two. Feeling strong, maybe. Take both hands down and step to downward dog. Perhaps walk the feet to the hands. And again, you have your choice. Rise up, rolling up, or taking the arms out. Reverse swan dive all the way up. Making your way back to your mountain pose. Checking in. Finding that balance, grounding down through the soles of the feet. Once again, maybe bringing the hand to heart, hand to belly. Consider the eyes open or the eyes closed. Just check in with curiosity. What are you feeling? What are you noticing? Notice your senses, all five senses. What are you hearing? What are you sensing? What are you feeling? Oh, it's up to you. If you would like to flow through more, you're welcome to explore a faster paced sun salutation that we just did, or follow me here and we'll reach high and fold forward. Coming halfway up, we fold, bring the hands to the mat, and step back to downward dog. Notice how it's feeling. Make any adjustments that make it feel better to you. Perhaps lowering the knees here. We'll head towards a child's pose if you like. If you like child's pose, if it's a comfortable and relaxing, restful pose to you, maybe consider taking the knees wide, sending the hips back towards the heels, and lowering down, forehead to the mat, or forehead to the arms, or you can take your blanket or pillows and make yourself cozy here. Take a few minutes here in your resting pose, whether that's child's pose or whether you have a different version that feels right to you. I'm going to talk you through So find the pose that feels right to you. Take a few breaths here. Notice and maybe ask yourself, what is coming up for me? Notice if you've had any feelings in the body that have come up that have been unpleasant. And notice what you do and how you can move through it. Can you observe what you're feeling and just be aware of it? Some of our practice will involve naming and just being aware, choosing to be aware of something, even if it's unpleasant, if it doesn't feel good, just recognize it and then make a change, right? We need to be aware of it first. So bring some awareness to each part of the body, wherever you are right now. Notice the parts of the body that are anchoring into the earth. Notice how your breath is moving through you. You are completely supported. You are strong. You are resilient. You are exactly where you need to be right now. And you're exactly where you need to be on your journey right now, on your healing journey. You're right where you need to be today. Consider if you would like to take a moment to use your journal right now and jot down any notes from your practice. Consider if there was one pose that comes to mind that really seemed to match how you were feeling today. Was there a pose that really worked for you? Even if you're familiar with all the poses and they're old hat, was there one that when you did it, it felt like coming home, that felt nurturing and supportive? If there was just one, go ahead and make a note of what that one was. And allow your body to find any other movement that you might like. That might mean reaching and stretching and twisting. This is your practice. You can do with it as you will. Do what feels right in your body. That is the real practice. The real practice is the checking in and honoring that. Finding that awareness of what it is that you need the most. And if you'd like to make your way to a resting pose, one that feels nurturing for you, that could be a traditional shavasana, lying on the back. Perhaps you like to lie on the back with the knees supported by a blanket or a pillow or a bolster. Perhaps it would be more comfortable to place a blanket underneath you. Or perhaps you'd like the blanket over top, on top of the belly, over the shoulders, over the hips, over the whole body. Maybe the blanket is comfortable behind the head or the neck. Find a position that feels really comfortable. Maybe that means lying on the side, or if you're more comfortable sitting up, that is fine too. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to do whatever feels the most comfortable. Consider it a treat, an indulging treat. As you come into a resting pose, it's up to you. Would you prefer to keep your eyes open or softly gazing, or close the eyes, or place a blanket or eye pillow over the eyes? Whatever feels right. Take that extra 2 seconds to make that choice. And perhaps it would feel good to take a deep breath in and exhale completely out. If that feels right to you, maybe you take a couple of those deep breaths in. And every breath you take, you honor the choices that your body is asking for. By doing this, you take control of your healing journey yourself. You're using the tools of choice, of options. You're empowering yourself to make those choices. And perhaps you can bring your awareness to each part of the body as you rest. Recognizing that whatever resting means to you is fine and honored and respected. Maybe bringing some awareness to each body part. Checking in with that body part. Noticing, how is it feeling? How does it feel in this position? Can you rest here? You deserve to rest. Working through the body from head to toe, acknowledging each part of the body, honoring each part of the body. Considering some words to soothe your soul. You are enough, and you always have been. You are your own guide and teacher. You are complete. You are exactly where you need to be and doing what you need to do. You are strong and resilient. Perhaps allow the body to exhale. And as you do, maybe you can relax just a little bit more. Let go of any expectations. Just allow your body to be. It's okay to do less than you think. You take time to nurture yourself. You are aware and present in your body and your mind. And as you're ready, perhaps begin to find some movement through the hands and the feet, or any other movement that feels right in your body right now. Find your breath and begin to reach and stretch if that feels right to you. inviting in any movement at all. And as you're ready, if you choose, move through to the side of the body, taking your time, and begin to press yourself up to a seated pose. Recognize that if you would prefer to stay in your resting pose, you are completely welcome to rest as long as you would like. Taking your time, honoring the pace that your body would like to move right now. If you would like to take a couple of minutes here to journal, to make some notes, to jot down any thoughts or poses that worked for you today, now would be a good time to do that while you're still in the moment, while it's still fresh for you. As soon as we walk away, we tend to forget how it felt in the moment. Things you'd like to remember, messages from the great beyond, messages that the body has sent to you. If you got some insight, go ahead and make a note to yourself here. You're welcome to journal as long as you would like, or rest in your resting pose, or anything else that feels right. I would like to honor you for showing up for yourself today and allowing yourself to be nurtured. That is where the work is. The work is showing up for ourselves, doing the work we need to do by treating yourself right. I hope that the practice served you well, and we'll be continuing with session 2 of this 4-part series tomorrow. We'll take a big breath. If it feels good to you and you'd like to join me, we'll take a breath in and reach high, exhaling, hands coming down, acknowledging the light in each other and the teachers who have brought this yoga teaching to us through the many, many years. Honoring you and your journey. Thank you for joining me. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed your practice today. If you have any questions, just send a note. And I hope to see you in tomorrow's practice. Good night.